Okay, today is May 27th, 2022. I have with me John Iverson and Joni Bergman-Ayler. They're going to talk today about St. John's School and St. John's Church. So, first of all, John, tell me when you were in the school and the church and all that.
I attended kindergarten there all through 8th grade. Several years after my kindergarten, they dropped the kindergarten. It was first through 8th grade. And it was wartime, 1944, when I walked in the door. And Joni's sister, and Kathy Patak, and Dick Yonda, and several others that didn't go to Plattsmouth High. No, Marion Ryan came later. But in those days, there wasn't a big enrollment because of war, and I would think that probably, I'm guessing here, trying to remember, probably what we're talking about is less than 100 kids, K through 8.
K through 8. So how many were in your kindergarten class, do you think? Probably less than 20, certainly.
I would think we're talking about 8 or 10.
Yeah, in kindergarten.
In kindergarten.
How about you, Joni?
I didn't go to kindergarten at St. John's because at that time there was none, as John mentioned.
Oh.
They had gotten rid of it.
So where did you go to kindergarten?
Central.
That's okay, Central School.
Yeah, and so I started in the first grade. My brother had already gone through St. John's, and my sister was 2 years ahead of me. And it was a fun time. I was, little, a small child. But the scariest thing about it was going to the restroom, which was on the lowest level of the school building where the boiler was. And it was very noisy. There was
always
a
dark.
girl's side and a boy's side, which with
always dark.
A curtain in between. It was always very dark and dank and just scary, especially for a little tiny
In the
kid.
basement.
First
Yeah.
couple of years, there was a real fear of going down there, particularly during the noon hour, because we were bullied a little bit. After a few wet pants, that got cured.
Anyway, I loved school. I loved my teacher. I had Sister Annalita for the first 4 years. The first through 4th graders were all in one room, and the 5th through 8th were on the 2nd floor. We were on the 1st floor, and then eventually that was broken down a little bit because the 5th and 6th graders were moved out of that top floor room and moved into where the stage area was, just to kind of separate the classes.
I'm going to hold up a picture here. I hope I can get it within the camera's range so that it looks decent. So, let me get the right picture here. Okay, this is the school we're talking about. And this was the entrance was on 6th Street?
Yes.
Okay, and to the left here, no, to the right is I'm seeing the back side of the priest quarters, right? That would be the one next to it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And the nuns had their quarters within this building, both upstairs and down.
Right.
And John, you have a little diagram. Can I see that? Maybe I'll hold that up.
Well.
So this is a diagram of how the building laid out, with a little chapel on the 1st floor and some classrooms. Was that all one big classroom downstairs?
Yes.
Okay.
With the chapel adjoining.
The doors could be opened. They were a series of doors
Okay.
that could
They
be
were
opened
folding doors.
And that was also true upstairs. You could open the doors and get a bigger room out of it. We didn't have that second classroom upstairs until the baby boomers hit.
Oh, yeah. I see you had a stage.
That was upstairs.
But did you have an audience place within that?
We always
very
had
small area in front of the stage.
Which direction did the stage face?
It
It
faced,
faced Sixth
West.
Street.
Oh, it did. That would be the
Sixth
long,
Street.
narrow way.
yeah.
Faced
Street.
Sixth Street.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So what kind of things did you do on the
well,
stage?
at the end of the year, we always had a program. And the program varied from year to year, depending on who the nuns were that directed it.
Yeah.
Sister Annalita, who Joni mentioned, was one of the two young nuns that really had a long history at St. John's, the other one being one that just retired when I got there. Sister Celestine was her name.
So you had two nuns that were,
At times, there were only two nuns there, plus a cook nun that wasn't able to
Housekeeper,
teach.
Yeah.
A cripple.
oh,
And later, they got to three, I believe, didn't they?
3 teachers, yeah.
When the baby boomers.
When the 5th and 6th grade was separated,
Yeah.
then we got Sister Marie Therese.
Yes. They were all from the same mother house in Kentucky.
oh.
And almost all of them, I've got to say, were great. There were one or two that thought sending here was punishment.
Yeah. And I see there was a chapel. Did you have chapel every day?
And I will talk to you about that if you wish, because I
Yes.
was the one that
Start.
that was server acolyte at the liturgy in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And the
Yeah,
reason,
there was always a mass in the morning.
early in the morning, and most of that was Monsignor Aegis.
And you had to go every day, or could you opt out of that and
Well,
not go?
we had turns. In the early years, they wanted me because they could depend on me, I guess.
You could be,
I could
to be
run
an
down the
acolyte.
hill and be there in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I can trace every step in my
Yes.
dreams.
You could go right by my
I
house.
can trace getting up the stairs. I can trace going to that big door with those weights to go inside and get ready to be the server at the liturgy and wait for Monsignor to come in the door holding those 2 cruets, wine and water, and they were colder than cold. They'd been in the icebox. Hi, Johnny. Early bird, huh? That's good for you. Now, don't tell me why Monsignor came from Malta, because I don't think anybody ever figured that out, did they?
Oh, yeah.
Did they?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Tell them.
Yeah. A childhood friend of his was Pope Pius XII.
Oh, my.
Eugenio Pacelli was his name, and they went to school together as young children. And eventually, he was named Pope Pius XII, and he was the Pope during World War II. And for several, I don't know exactly how many years, but the reason it made so much difference with our family, because my sister was born on the day that he took the job of Pope. And so it was always a special day, and especially with Father Aegis then at our parish, we would hear lots of things about
The Pope.
Eugenio Pacelli, the Pope, and it was always very interesting. And when Monsignor retired, this is a picture of him, he went back to Malta.
Now,
And
so he was he ordained as a Monsignor while you were there?
Oh,
Yes.
he was by far
I think
Monsignor.
he was a Monsignor when he
Long
came.
time before.
Oh, yeah, he was an author and everything. Really, he was a very learned
I
man.
have the book that he wrote, one of them.
Okay, so this is,
Monsignor
Father-
George Aegis.
Yeah, Father George.
and how long did he stay there? Because I
Over
think I
30
remember
years.
that.
27 to 56.
He
I was going to say, I remember that name.
He
from-
was the longest serving pastor we ever had.
Sure.
And he became friends with my parents, and he used to write to them after he moved back to Malta. Very often. He had a brother that was here as well. His name was Marcellus, I believe, and he was at our parish a little while before Monsignor George came. But anyway, they were amazing men. really were. Monsignor used to scare the bejesus out of me because he was always very
He could be gruff.
dramatic
He could be
in
gruff.
with his sermons and everything, and I can remember sitting there in front of church, just almost shivering because I was frightened of the man. But yet, outside of Mass, and when he's not giving a sermon, he was always so friendly and sweet,
Yeah.
and so that certainly
So you have
counteracted.
Mass with communion every morning?
Yes, twice.
With a sermon?
No, not
There
during
was
the
a time.
week. The reason they used the chapel rather than church in the wintertime was simply heat.
Oh, sure.
They didn't want to heat the
The whole
church
big
during the
building.
week.
Right.
And so anyway, to finish my story about the early morning, here I am, and we start the liturgy, and it was always in Latin, which was the church's biggest mistake over the years. And anyway, I would kind of drift off because it was early morning. And if the bell didn't ring on time, he said, "Wake up, ring the bell."
Yeah? Oh, that was your job, to ring the bell during communion?
Well, at different times during the
Communion.
liturgy, the bell was supposed to ring. And,
Yeah.
In the end, I'll tell you what I would do. I'd take off my cassock and surplice and run back in time for breakfast. And I didn't
At
have,
home?
Yeah.
Oh,
And I didn't have to go by to that second one where all the rest of you went because I had already been. And they started school then.
so there was 2 Masses every day in the chapel? You could
No,
go to
just
whichever
one.
Oh,
Just one Mass.
Well, there was Monsignor's early Mass,
Oh,
and then
okay.
later there was
I don't like
the
that.
assistant. He had assistants after World War II.
Yeah.
And the
Not
assistant
before.
would say the second Mass for the school kids to start the school.
Oh.
That's true, yeah.
so this was open to the public when you went?
Always, all of them were. But the early Mass was Mr. Bergman, the nuns, and about 2 or 3 others.
That's just who came?
That's who came in that little chapel.
Okay.
And away he'd go.
And the chapel was downstairs on the
Yeah.
first floor?
Yeah, yeah.
So did you have to walk through classrooms to get to the
No,
chapel?
there was an
No,
outside opening
Oh,
door,
an
the one
outside
he
door.
referred to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the church itself was cold.
Okay, so,
It was hard to heat.
yes.
And there was to mention air conditioning was light years away from any of
There were
these
windows.
Yeah.
They had a lot of windows, and the windows were those big, tall windows that went practically from the bottom to the top.
I have a picture of the school. Oh, it's in this book, isn't it? Oh, of the church with the priest's home, yeah. And this was taken in 1959. So when was it torn down? What year?
No, Joni would
70?
know that, and I don't.
When was what torn down?
The church itself.
I don't know. That was long after the new church was built.
Okay,
Tore
so
down
this
the old
is,
church. Well, yeah.
yes,
But it was
this is St. John's Church and the priest's home. The priest's home on the left here is now somebody's home. They've remodeled it, and it was on the tour
It's
not
still
too long
up.
ago.
It's still up.
Oh, yeah. mhm.
Okay.
But the church itself is gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, so that's just kind of a driveway for that home
Right.
now.
Yeah.
My dad was a hunter, and he would always, every year, stop and give Monsignor some ducks to cook. And one time, Monsignor answered the door, and I got to actually walk into the rectory, and that's the only time I was ever in there.
I was in it several times, but I was with my mom, and she did a lot of things for the priests, and so
Yeah?
When
I
the
would
nuns,
tag along.
when the nuns would come in the August, the ladies of the church would help clean their quarters and get them prepared for the school year.
So the nuns went back to their home in Kentucky during
After
the
summer,
summertime?
Yes.
Oh.
That was their tradition. This was the order of the Ursuline sisters. Before that, there were some Dominican nuns and I believe some Franciscans, but ultimately the Ursulines asked to be in Plattsmouth to teach at the school and everything, and because they had others of their order that were stationed in Nebraska City for the same purpose.
Oh,
And it was, then that's the real reason we kept them, because it was kind of a community between the two. And we would have lost them, I think, if it hadn't been for that Nebraska City affair. Don't you think,
You
Joan?
mean of the nuns down there?
Yes.
They had more than we did
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah.
and a bigger school as
Yeah,
well.
well, they even had a little high school down there that they, St. Bernard's, that they.
I have 2 grandchildren who graduated from that, Lourdes High School,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
yeah.
So, Monsignor's dream was to build a new school,
Yeah,
and he was able to see the new school at his last year there.
So he was still there when the
yes,
school was built.
yes, he was. And there's a funny story about that with my dad that actually my husband heard from more about from my brother.
Your
and-
brother, yeah.
And my dad. At the time, the parish raised the money for the new school. They had over almost $50,000 of money saved, and they were told they needed to get permission from the bishop in Lincoln before they could build a school. So my dad was head of the committee that went to Lincoln to meet with the bishop, and they said that they were there because they wanted to build a new school. And what did the bishop say?
Bishop said, "You people from Plattsmouth, that's all you ever wanted, something from me." To which John's dad spoke up, says, "Only thing we want from you, sir, is your permission to do it. We have the assets."
We have the money. Yeah.
And they were able
And
to
then he
say,
says, "Oh, that's different, go ahead."
oh,
It's
you've got
a
the
little-
money.
It's a little deeper
If
than that.
you've got the money, fine, go ahead, build the school.
It's a little deeper than that, but I gotta be careful here.
Oh, well, don't be careful.
Well,
What's the
Monsignor
story?
Aegis rightly said that
May he
St.
rest in
John's,
peace.
St. John's was the parish in Plattsmouth.
Yeah,
And the other parish was a satellite to that just because of the Czech ancestry
Yeah.
of the other people.
there was a little
And there was a
friction.
little friction there. And in fact, Monsignor lost the friendship of the bishop, I think, because of some mouthiness about it. Don't you think, Joni?
Could be, I wasn't there.
But anyway, of course, the new church took care of that. But my grandfather helped build the Bohemian Church.
Oh,
My mother was of Czech ancestry, and she was friends with all those people out there. And once in a while, we'd go to church out there, and
That's right.
it was a nice little parish.
Oh, absolutely.
Unfortunately, there were some downtimes out there.
Well, it just was, people are not perfect, and, little squabbles arise at times. Sometimes the priest is involved.
Those churches went together to build the school.
Yeah, the 2 churches went together
Okay.
to build the school.
And the
we
new
went-
church too, didn't they?
We had students in all our classes that were from both parishes, because Holy Rosary didn't have their own school, so the kids would go to St. John's if their
yes. In
their
fact,
parents wanted
yeah,
them to.
I have a picture, Catherine
Yeah.
sent a picture of Dick Yonda
Oh, yeah.
on the
Joe
playground.
and Joe
And I knew
Linhart.
he was
Joe
the Holy
Linhart.
Rosary person.
Yeah.
Linhart?
Yeah,
I'm looking for a picture of the new school, so just
and then,
keep talking.
so we all were very well acquainted from the time we were children, and that
Sure.
was
I
wonderful.
think you have a picture of the new school in there.
Do you have a
somewhere.
picture of the new school? That's
Is
what I'm
that
looking
still
for.
there?
Yes, it's now
It's-
a it's a assisted living facility, I guess is what you call it. It's called Hope Center.
Yes. I
The
don't
new
know.
school-
It's not an assisted living for older people.
It's for younger people.
It's for young people who, I guess I don't
Are
know exactly
challenged.
what their function is.
Disabled.
Challenged individuals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's all I know. I don't really know what they actually do. But I know they revamped that building to accommodate,
the photo on the bottom is
No, this
That's
is
it, the second school
Oh,
there.
that's the second
Yeah.
school, yeah.
Yeah, I have a better picture than that.
And there, we may have a better picture too.
After the baby boomers, the enrollment leveled off to and remained somewhat constant.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's still under 100.
Here's a picture of the new school, which is located on 5th Street, which would have been north of the church.
The old playground that I've got
Our old
marked on that
playground,
map. The big old playground.
Okay, this
We
was
used to
the
play there.
playground.
That's where that-
And then just south of this building, I don't know if that building is still standing, was the caretaker's home.
Yes.
It's not there.
It's not
gone.
there anymore.
No.
there
And
was-
after the fire, the nuns lived in that
Yeah,
building.
they had a fire in the old school, and did you remember, Sandy?
I didn't know. But
Yeah.
I did know they moved into that building, but I guess I don't remember the
Well,
fire.
they had a fire.
That building was already under construction before the fire. I graduated from St. John's in 1958. The new school was under construction, scheduled to open in the fall of '56, and it did. And somewhere after that, the old school caught fire.
Do we know how?
I don't think they've ever figured it
The-
out, but
the-
it was the boiler, I think.
It was a steam boiler, and we had these radiators in the classrooms that would hiss and sparkle and crack.
Clunk and everything.
So
And
was the school ruined at that time then?
they thought it was, but it was on its way out anyway, because
Yeah.
they were building the new
So
school.
it was torn down shortly after?
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes. So,
Right.
So then it was just the church and the priest's home, well, plus the caretaker's home and the new school then? Okay.
Right.
And all of this took up 1 square block, basically. Well, no, 1/2
Half a
block.
square block, yes.
Because the alley ran between Patox and all
Right.
of this, yeah, okay.
but basically, Sandy, school there was fun, like Joni said.
Yeah, it was.
It was unique. The 6th to 8th grade, she would have to stop here and go there with this class for the 6th grade, and she'd then have to stop, and we'd have kind of a pause, and she would go with us for a while,
Kind of
and it was kind of unique.
A
that
study
way.
time.
It was unique that way.
And recess, we all played together, all grades, as I remember. I don't know whether that was constantly or just part of the time, but I can remember being swung on swings by some of the great big girls that used to live in my neighborhood up on Catholic Hill. And it was just a lot of fun because there were so many age differences and we got to know each other from little on up that these people were part of the parish as well.
Yeah. And as I said, most of the nuns were great. The 1 or 2 that thought they were punished for sort of a down year, but that didn't happen but once.
Basically, you had happy
And you know,
years.
it was a sort of a relaxed atmosphere, and of course I was playing it like a jerk if people would pay attention to me and ask for more, you know that, at that age. And so she got back at me.
Okay,
She had the last laugh on me because I was giving her heck all the year. Sister
Sister Marie-Therese?
Jeanette. Marie-Therese
Oh,
was the
Jeanette?
one that,
Oh.
Marie-Therese was the one that didn't want to be here.
Yeah,
And Jeanette,
and you could tell, yeah.
and Jeanette, I was
I never had a
poking
problem.
at her all year long whenever I could. So she got back at me at the end of the year with a play.
With a what?
A play.
Oh, yeah.
And during the play, unknown to me, one of the lines, Kathy Patox smacked me right in the cheek as a part of the play.
she had told her to, or what?
She told her
I'll
to.
ask Catherine about that.
And I almost fell over.
I don't remember that, John.
Oh, I do.
I'm sure you do.
Well, tell us a little bit about the church itself then. I remember very well when they sold everything out and had the big auction. That was heartbreaking.
It was so sad. And later on, we were searching for some of the statues that we all grew to love over the many, many years. And I mean, they were just about totally, well, honey, you did some investigation, didn't you? Or knew of some of the investigations. And the one beautiful, beautiful stained glass window was...
That we never found.
Was, yeah, lost totally.
Hey, I can walk in now.
Some of it went to the
Well, some of
Trashy.
them were bought by a restaurateur in Omaha.
and some were bought by people, individuals.
Yes.
My St.
It was up
Joseph
for auction.
statue was bought by Barb Krejci, and she gave it to me later on.
Okay.
And, I mean, there's a lot of stories about
You
it.
walked in and you walked toward the front, you looked at the front altar, and it was an old-fashioned type of altar.
I have a picture of that. Do you have a
And,
picture?
There is one.
and
I
they
don't know
had
if
a
I do.
communion rail there.
Yep.
And I walked in on Sunday and I went to the side little room where it was never any heat to put on my garb to serve Mass. And I'd go to the other side and wait for the priest to come. If it was Monsignor, he'd hand me those cruets.
So you were an
again.
acolyte from when to when, what age?
The first time I did it was in second grade, and I fell out of the clothes they put me in, and I had to wait several months to get a little taller so they could find something for me.
This is a picture of the inside of St. John's Catholic Church.
Anyway, as I say, I know every step,
Sure.
and I see it in my dreams.
How long? How many years?
Huh?
How many years?
Oh, we were married there.
No. I want to know how many years you were an altar server.
Through high
Well, you-
school.
I was a sophomore in high school. I said, I don't want to do it anymore.
Oh.
I was helping with the athletics.
Athletic, yeah.
And I don't want to do it anymore.
Okay, so from a little kid,
From
To
second grade
middle
up
high
through
school.
sophomore in high school.
Okay.
We had a crew that did that in the mornings. We took turns. Jim Schuslick did it a while. Denny Patak did it a while. I did it often. And then later on, Jerry Smith and Bill Brink helped out.
did the other Smith boys do it?
Later
yeah.
on, I think so, yeah.
As Jerry was the oldest.
Yes,
so.
Jerry was the oldest. They
Yeah.
lived right next door to us.
So, we were close there. We were right there within a few blocks of the school, all of us. And so they depended on us to get there early in the morning.
Yeah.
And the girls were in the choir,
I was just going to ask you about the choir.
especially when Sister Annalita was there. She had a beautiful voice. She was a very young nun. In fact, our parish was the second parish she had ever taught at.
And where did the choir sit?
Clear up in the
Up in
there was
the-
a balcony.
Up
Behind?
in the choir loft.
Up in the choir loft.
And we sang for funerals, whatever, but it just was understood that we would be there to sing, and many times, my sister and I and maybe one or two other girls, maybe Mary, your sister, would sing for a funeral, because we were the only ones that were there.
Yeah.
And sometimes we had to sing without an organist too, so,
Who was the organist?
well,
Well,
Sister
Sister
Annalita was
but
the
she
main
had to
one.
be in the classroom so they couldn't always depend.
If they were-
Margaret Eiding was a great organist.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, she was great.
Margaret Eiding was a great organist. But every Christmas at midnight, and we would practice a long time, and she would call us back from high school to be a part of that choir. And I can still hear Mary
We had
Ann
a
Ryan.
beautiful midnight
I hear
mass.
Mary Ann Ryan singing Jesu Bambino.
Yes. Mary Ann had a beautiful voice.
Mary Ann had a beautiful voice. I can hear her yet singing that.
Yep.
Speaking of beautiful voices, I remember John Cloyd singing
Yes.
for funerals or whatever, just special occasions. He had a very strong voice. You could hear him in downtown Plattsmouth from the church when he sang.
And he was a regular at funerals to sing. And of course, they'd pull us out of school to help with the service and go out to the cemetery in the car. And one time I had this incense
Yes.
container. And I dropped it in the funeral car for a whole
Oh my
lot of-
gosh. Yeah, it was hot.
Oh, oh, well, it probably wasn't the first time that happened, John.
And that was in Fusselman's, probably.
Oh,
Or
Sattlers.
Sattler.
Sattler, yeah,
So,
right.
so.
So, I'm just wondering if you remember when these buildings were built. I know the school was built in 1849, did we say, or 1884?
1884.
Okay.
All of them,
And the church was built at the same time?
all of them.
Yes.
The church that you're talking about is the second St. John's Church in
Yeah.
Plattsburgh.
Oh, yes, I
The
was
first-
aware of that. Where was the
The
first
first
one?
one was on 5th Street and 2nd Avenue, right on the corner.
Wait a minute. 5th Street and 2nd, oh, on the south?
Up by Rylander Park.
Here's
Yeah, I
a
was gonna
picture
say,
of it.
that's, oh, yes, yes.
They're
it-
up on the other side of town.
Not
up the hill.
Rylander Park, it was by,
Up by Rylander Park.
close to where your Uncle Ray lived. up
That's
by-
Rylander,
That's Memorial.
Memorial Park, I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
That's-
Memorial Park.
That's
Yeah.
what I was
Garfield
throwing you.
Garfield, that's.
Garfield Park,
Garfield,
yes.
okay, yeah.
Yes, that's the Yessick House now, just north of the park.
Yes.
Just,
Yeah, okay. That was the first, and it's still there. Yeah,
Still
that
there,
building
yeah.
is still there. Do you have a picture of that?
It's the top one.
Oh, it doesn't look the same.
And it says 1863.
And that was 1863, so this was the church until 1884? What year are you
In that,
saying?
in that range,
Okay.
yeah. That's,
The-
the
the-
church and school were both built
The
close.
buildings, we're talking about the church, the school, the rectory, were all the same age. They were brick buildings, built about the same, within a months of each other, I would think.
This is the
Nobody to look.
first original Catholic church at 5th and Granite, which would be just north of Garfield Park, 1873 built. And the others were built in 1884.
Here's the-
So back to how long the Catholic Church was there. As I said, I remember the auction very well. And I know that some of the things were bought by, his name was Rusty. He was a restaurateur in Omaha. I can't remember. Do you remember what restaurant he had?
no, I
I
don't.
know his name was Rusty.
Oh, I
And he
know.
bought all the candles. There was a candle room on
That was probably part
on the
of the
west.
sacristy in the back of the church.
on the west, and it was full of candles, and he bought all those candles. He bought the altar, they told me, as a buffet for his restaurant, which was, and he bought the confessional for a phone booth, and all of this stuff was supposed to go in his restaurant. I don't think I ever went to that restaurant, and I don't remember the name of it, but I do know that the 3 windows up by the choir loft were stained glass windows, and some of the girls, like Judy Sikora and Joanne Keeley, who was the other one who was killed in the car wreck, those
Gene
families,
Dasher.
well, as far as going to that church.
Yeah, no. It was just Judy
Those two
and
girls?
Joanne,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
far as I
But
remember.
those families wanted those windows and didn't get them. I just remember
We
going to
had
that
nothing
auction.
to do with that. I mean,
Yeah, well,
It was after I was gone.
that's a story I could talk a lot about, but.
oh, okay. Maybe you shouldn't. I don't know.
You remember all that? Did you go to the auction?
No,
You didn't?
no.
Okay.
The St. John's had this beautiful, beautiful circular stained glass window.
The one in
right-
that picture.
Right
yeah.
behind the altar.
Behind the altar.
Oh, behind it? Yes, it's in the picture. I know
That
it.
was probably the most beautiful stained glass.
And that,
And I
It's
tried
called a
to,
rose window.
to talk the priest into keeping it and putting it into the new church and backlighting it,
uh-huh,
and was turned down. It was
because,
because he wanted to sell it for the money,
oh,
because it brought quite a lot of money.
And so that money helped build the new church?
hopefully.
It went towards it, but as of today, we're still about $1 million that we're still paying.
Really? I
On the
wasn't
new
aware
church
of
and
that.
school,
wasn't
probably.
But that's a church and school, I think.
Hey,
rectory.
That's typical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ours is, what, 3 million?
Was, because we got it
Yeah,
down to
we-
about 17 now,
The
1.7.
church, the
1.7.
school, the rectory are all together now. And you can
Uh-huh.
go from one to the other without ever going outside.
Kath, what's your debt?
And it's,
Our
like I say, it's a
church.
little over $1 million now for all of those.
How much is the debt?
Mark, what's the debt?
About 6 million in our new building. We just built it last year.
Back in those days.
And who holds the financing?
Well,
The
you see,
diocese?
that's part of the problem.
Back in
Sometimes-
those days, sometimes the priests, if they had resources, would gather the money together and pay off the debt when they got.
Expecting to be paid
Hey,
back.
Monsignor,
As a loan.
But very often they weren't.
Monsignor Aegis had money.
So did Monsignor Prutzik. He donated money to the parish.
He did.
We were in his
Well,
will.
he did something right.
Uh-huh. Right, honey? You remember that, yes.
I'm gonna change my mind about him.
You should. We were in his will. I mean we personally, but the parish.
The
parish
church.
was.
Bless his heart.
Yes.
How old is the current church and school?
When was
Well,
that
the
built?
school was built in
School-
1994.
Forward.
He supervised it.
Yeah.
The church was built, I believe, in 72 is when it was started. That was to join the two parishes together because it was decided there was no longer a need for two separate parishes.
Right.
Didn't matter your heritage, and that's true. And so.
And was there any,
I remember attending the first mass when the new church was open in 1978 in March, because it happened to be my birthday.
so do you think both churches agreed fully on this? It was
yes.
not a problem for anybody, basically?
It wasn't at the time.
There were a few
It
that.
was at the time.
You know,
but
you're
the
always gonna have the one or two, but there wasn't any big hard
No.
feelings.
Father Raymond Hine came here as our pastor right before it happened, and he had the message from the bishop that he wanted the two parishes to become one, and it would go under the name Church of the Holy Spirit. And so we went about joining the women's groups from Holy Rosary and St. John's. We started meeting together and planning for this, and so did the men's groups, Knights of Columbus, etc. And so it was a fairly
Do we have a picture of
Holy Rosary?
No, of the Holy Spirit?
Yeah.
That's your stuff.
It's on the front of.
I don't think there's one in this.
I know I printed one.
Did you? Printed mostly old pictures. There it is. Oh,
That's the whole facility.
Perfect.
Here, This
There's
is
Oh, this is
another
the
one.
rectory.
This is the rectory, the church,
this
and the
doesn't
school.
show the bell tower.
And, yeah,
That's part of the school?
this is part of the school, I'm sorry, this is the church.
Yeah,
And
and
this
this is,
is what we call the commons.
yes, okay.
And then the bell tower, that's an interesting story on the bell tower too.
Oh, well, tell us just a minute, let me get this picture. Okay. This is a picture of the Church of the Holy Spirit, which is a combination of Holy Rosary and St. John's. On the extreme left is the rectory, and then the entrance, and then the church, and way to the right is the school. So what's your story?
Well, the bell tower, when I was still working, I had a young man that worked for me. He designed the bell tower for us at no cost.
It's very
We put it out for bids and it was built. Another friend of mine did a lot of work with stainless steel. He built the cross, and about a month before it was to go up on the tower, it got struck by lightning. So he had to end up shortening it about a foot and a half
Oh,
to put it, because it just ruined the base of it a little
so
bit. So
This
he-
was,
you're saying the bell tower was struck by lightning?
No, the cross, just
The
the
cross.
cross.
Just the cross.
the bell tower is separate from the church, as you can see.
Yeah,
that
it's a
structure.
freestanding.
Freestanding,
Yes,
yeah.
uh-huh.
And
Right.
how are the bells rung from?
Okay, now I was going to get to that.
Okay.
Now, the one bell, the priest wanted bronze bells because he said they have a better sound. Holy Rosary had a bronze bell. St. John's had a steel bell. So the steel bell went bye-bye. But the one from Holy Rosary was taken to Otto Weber's workshop.
Yeah.
And Otto, Dick Krejci, and myself, it was rope pulled and rope ring at Holy Rosary. So Dick and Otto and I developed and worked on it and came up with a way to ring it with the motor remotely. So we got that one installed, and then later the church bought the other two bells from, I don't know who they bought them
Oh.
from, but they bought
Are
the
there
other.
3 bells there?
There
I
are
thought
3
there were
bells.
2.
There are 3 there, yeah.
Oh,
And the other 2 bells then are installed, and if you look up at them, you'll see that the 2 lower bells have a big old ring that is operation, but the one up on top doesn't. It's got some type of bushings that it rotates on instead, just because we didn't know, we did the best
Interesting.
with what we knew how to do, and we did it that way. So it was a little different.
okay, you guys
Anyway.
have anything more to say?
Well, as I say, it will never disappear from my dreams.
Well, I'm sure.
No, no, the church was our universe in my family, and that had come from ancestors on both my mother and my father's side, who came from Germany and were very strong Catholics. They were from Bavaria and passed that on to their family, and Ken and I have tried to do that with our family as well.
And anyway,
Yes.
I've got something else I want to talk to you about.
Is it about the church?
No,
Okay, well, can we do it later then?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank you both for coming today. I think we wrapped up the school, the church, the nuns, the priests, the new building. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandy.